welcome to the 5th part of the Divine Lilith Masterclass. So today is going to be about self-forgiveness, which is really hard for some people. And I know this from experience that it is an extremely hard route to go down. Don't mind me taking my glasses on and off, it's just the glare of the light gets me. And we're also going to talk about role-playing and closure when it involves someone that you're no longer in contact with. Now, why this is important for the Divine Lilith and important for us as Divine Feminine beings, or even understanding Divine Feminine beings, is because Divine Feminines embody all, which is the light and the dark. We are in charge of spirituality. We are in charge of the spiritual movement. We are in charge of recognizing our shadows and recognizing how they play out in the physical world. We can take a more spiritual view on this, and we can take a more practical 3D view on this. But to kind of get started, I'm going to read out a poem that I wrote tonight when I was talking to a dear friend, and it just kind of came to me. But can you dive deep into my shadows and still find the beauty within? Can you stare at my demons and love the child that's hidden? Can you be almost drowned by my tears, burnt by my fire? See me more than just a passing desire? Can you find euphoria at leaving the ground? Leaving all that you know until you are found? Can you look at my scars as I'm a warrior grown, as a queen on a throne? Or will you tie me down as an object to be owned? Will you question your lust for a lifetime of pleasure? Or will you look at me among others as a beauty to measure? Will you put a collar on me to let others know you're mine? Or will you let me be freely, wildly divine? Now, the reason why this poem kind of stuck out to me when I was writing it out was not only because of the fact that it was like a download coming through, but it also talks about the ways of self-forgiveness and the ways that we recognize our shadows, like our lustful desires, like our wrath and our anger, like our vindictiveness or our resentment or our revenge side. Like, a lot of people do go through this. A lot of people go through this without realizing that a lot of this is shadow wounds. A lot of this is trauma. A lot of this is Kundalini healing that needs to be done. And the first step of that, honestly, in my opinion, is not going out there and telling everyone what they did wrong to you. The first part is self-reflection and self-forgiveness. Because if you cannot take a kind of whole, divine, unified view and like look at your shadows as much as you look at your light, you're not going to be able to see where your shadows are playing on yourself and where your shadows may be playing and reflecting back to you in other people. Now, there's a lot of stuff in the spiritual world which I'm not going to play into too much, where it's like, you know, your energy and your frequency that you put yourself in is what you're going to receive into the world, which is a lot like, you know, if you believe that you're a victim, you're going to attract in people and situations that are going to make you a victim to self-assure you that you are a victim. The universe will reflect back to you the frequency that you're in. So a lot of the time we get stuck in those zones and we keep repeating the same cycle and we keep going down the same roads and expecting different results, which is pure insanity. So the ways that we can start to really forgive ourselves is not only reflection and like judging ourselves, but actually taking in that lesson for what it's needed to be. So let's say something like you have a resentment towards people because they have mistreated you in the past. While that resentment may be justified, and a lot of the time it is, the resentment can transfer onto other people a lot. And it's not to say that there isn't like little wounds or something where, you know, maybe someone has done something horrible to you, but that feeling of resentment transfers onto this person as well. So it's not about the fact that they haven't done something unjust to you. It's about the fact that you've taken your power and given it to this person to fix this feeling of resentment or anger or wrath or jealousy or whatever it is that you're feeling. So to first self-forgive means to look at that part of yourself that did not get that love, care, compassion, justification that you needed from the person that you maybe originally needed it from. Let's say that this is like a parent or a caregiver or something like that. Something happened in your past, and instead of you being the focus, your feelings became the focus. Instead of you being viewed as a child who needed to be nurtured and cared for and listened to and understood, you were seen as a problem to be dealt with. You were seen as a misbehaving child, or you were seen as a burden in some ways. So to take this in a more self-loving route, you're going to take ownership for that you are no longer a child. So that's where you take your power back from that person that you gave that power to in the past. I'm going to now take that power back, because the thing is that you can't actually give your power to anyone without being willing to do so. No one holds your power but you. It's just a mind trick into you believing that this person holds your power. Your power never actually left your side in general. So the ways that you can take a step to forgive yourself is, one, realize that you're the one with the power. No one else has that power aside from you, and to give someone else your power is actually just it's a head fuck, it's a mind trick. It's a way for you to not be looking at yourself in the way that you need to as a person that needs to be nurtured and cared for. And two, to self-forgive means that you're going to forgive yourself for the ways that you reacted in a way that may not have been kind or loving, either to yourself or to the other person. So in my last 2 videos, I think, we talked about how, you make amends for the things that you've done wrong, a lot with addictions as well. Like, we become addicted to our feelings, we become addicted to the stress and addicted to being right and addicted to being a good person. But we also get addicted to things like a victim mindset or a warrior mindset, where it's like, I'm always this tough, strong person and nothing can never hurt me, which can be a lot of falsified ego. Like, a lot of this can just be pretend. It's a lot of euphoric mindset where we believe that just because we say something doesn't hurt us, that we're not actually suppressing those emotions. And a lot of the times we are. So when it comes to self-forgiveness, we've got to take a really balanced view on not only where we halted on our boundaries to make it so that this person was able to come in to our personal safe space of like our mind or emotions and allow them to be given power in the first place, but we're also going to take a view on whether our emotions are justified or whether they may be transferring from a hidden wound. So if you know that you have wounds around your childhood where you have been treated unjust, or you have been put in that victim mindset, or you have been demonized for your behavior or for the ways that other people have demonized you, you're going to really have to sit down with yourself, maybe even write a list of the behaviors that you took and the emotions that you felt, and where they belong with you and where they belong with this person. And this is going to be pretty hard, because like, we'll get to the point of closure with the other person, even if you're not with the other person. So where this gets hard is you have to be able to face your demons. You have to be able to face your shadows to be able to forgive them in the first place. So let's say that someone did do something to you as a child, and you were put in that state of taking all the blame for that, as if you were a burden, or as if, you know, you were some unlovable creature in the first place. So the ways that you can write this list is like, this is what I felt, this is how they portrayed me as, or how they projected onto me. And now that you're an adult, you're going to take that balanced view of, okay, I was made to feel like a burden. What actions did they take, or what did they say to make you feel like a burden? And is that just? Like, is that actually, can that be rectified in some way internally with you? Like, no, you're not a burden. You weren't a burden because you wanted love and compassion in that state, or you wanted nurturance in that state, or you wanted understanding. That's just. That's normal. That's absolutely okay. That is to be expected from your adult, your parent, your caregiver, your family member, the person that loves you, even your partner. Like, in this situation, it was unfair. Now, then you take a look at your reaction to that situation, and as a child, your reactions are going to be just either way, because you're kind of getting taught by society, your parents, your role models, your entertainment even, of how to deal with situations. So as a childhood wound, pretty much there's not going to be a list of anything that is going to be like, okay, this wasn't okay. Because as a child, you get taught that. Like, yes, you have your own personality, but the ways that you handle situations are all taught from other people. Even things like if you have a parent who has mental health issues or addictions or a personality disorder, those things are transferred on. The ways that they react, the ways that they handle stress, the ways that they handle their feelings and suppressing them and victimizing other people to make themselves the good person, those all get transferred on. Now, I very much had that parental upbringing where there was a lot of stress in the family. There was a lot of addictions, not only emotional addictions, but actual addictions. So it was very difficult to be an adult and to pull yourself out of that when you're constantly getting reassured that you're the problem. And until you take a very big step back from the people that are reassuring those childhood wounds in you, you're not going to get a very balanced view on whether or not that situation was actually justified for you to be treated in that way, or whether or not it was someone projecting onto you. And it took a lot of not only spiritual healing, but trauma healing and, you know, addiction healing and all the other things to be able to get to a place to realize that a lot of the things that happened to me in childhood were projections of generational trauma, of projections of generational addictions, projections of generational injustice that just weren't handled and weren't dealt with. And while there's a lot of ways that I have reacted, especially in adulthood, that, you know, transferred from my childhood to now, a lot of the times that was because those situations were never dealt with in the first place. They were never handled, they were never brought to the light with those people. And so I had to take a balanced view at that and look at it and say, okay, this person is never going to get to this point of realizing how badly they hurt me, or how badly this situation affected me, or how badly this situation traumatized me or my children. Like, they are never going to get to that stage. And a lot of the time, the people in our lives who are not awoken to these situations or don't want to know will never get to that point of realizing how badly their actions hurt other people. This is where self-forgiveness comes in. Self-forgiveness is realizing that you have taken on those attributes. You have taken on those addictions. You have taken on those projections as a part of your personality and not as something that was done to you. So forgiving yourself is going to be the hardest and easiest thing to be able to move past those things in the first place that are actually trying to hold you back. where you were not loving to yourself and where they were not loving to you in those lists, is going to be a lot easier for you to understand where you're going to have to forgive yourself for the ways that you reacted because they were childhood wounds or because they were something that someone's projecting onto you that they've tried to make your responsibility. So you're going to have to forgive yourself for taking on that responsibility in the first place and holding on to someone else's trauma or holding on to someone else's baggage without realizing that you were doing it in the first place. That's going to be like, step one. And then two is realizing that there is going to be shame. There is going to be guilt. You are going to get humbled in some situations. You are going to have people that are not going to want to hear your side of the story, and they are going to make assumptions however they like, and that's fine. But you need to forgive yourself to be able to get to this state of mind where you have taken both the light aspects of, I have stood up for myself, I have set affirming boundaries, I am being loving towards myself, I am nurturing towards myself, I am feeling my feelings and not suppressing them. That's all good, but you're also going to have to be loving towards the fact that these people are not going to ever see your side of the story. They are never going to get to a point of realizing what it is, and if they do, it's not up to you to be responsible for that either. Now, when we're getting in this state of forgiveness for ourselves, it is really easy to turn the mirror back on ourselves and say everything they said about me was true. A lot of the times, yeah, it can be that way. Like, a lot of the times we can be humbled in very shitty ways and we can go, oh fuck, I did treat people unfairly or poorly or in an unjust way. Like, we can take that on and really demonize ourselves. But at the same time, we need to realize that that just means that we've come to the awareness now where we now feel responsible and we feel in control of that now, where we can go, okay, what am I going to do about this now that this awareness has come to me? A lot of people don't get to this state of awareness. A lot of people will just stay in their trauma and project it onto you. So congratulations to you for coming to this state of awareness already. Being able to forgive yourself is going to be really difficult because you're going to have to fully feel the feelings. Now, when you have addictions to any feeling or any substance, including things like coffee or cigarettes or alcohol or drugs or anything, it's going to be really fucking hard because those are used to suppress your emotions. Those are used to change the chemicals in your body, to change your alignment, to be able to not feel it. It is literally a block in your mind. It is a block in your brain. It is a block in your chakras, in your healing, in every way, shape, or form. You're going to have to go out in the forest. You're going to have to find a place where you can feel free to, or like in the shower, in your own bedroom, whatever it is. And you're going to have to kind of put yourself in this detox zone of feeling your feelings. You're going to have to sink all the way down into your feelings. And this is going to be hard, especially if you have years and years and years of trauma. You are going to come out of it a bit more humble. You are going to come out of it a bit more depleted than when you came in. But a lot of this is writhing around inside of you, waiting for a situation to come up where you can project it onto another person. Or that feeling you get when it's like, oh my God, I just need a cigarette, or I just need a drink, or I just need to get away from these people. All of that, like, is an addiction to suppressing your feelings. It is an addiction because instead of going ahead and dealing with a situation or dealing with the way that you feel, and maybe even facing your own shadows, you are going to completely go the other way around, and you're going to just completely reject all of that because either you felt rejected or because you've rejected yourself in a situation. And what I mean by that is, like, if someone did something to you, you have to self-sacrifice in order to feel that sense of safety in that person again. So if this is an abusive relationship or a dysfunctional family or anything like that, in order to feel safe again in this person who has like control over your livelihood, basically, you're going to need to self-sacrifice and go, what parts of me can I cut away or suppress in order to feel safe in this connection again? And since we're talking about divine Lilith and divine unity, we're going to have to talk about that internally too. You're going to have to fix that connection of this separation between these parts of yourself that you don't like, that you had to sacrifice in order for you to come back into this place of unity within yourself. Because this is where this whole you can't love someone until you love yourself and no one can love you until you can love yourself, it does hold some weight. It's not some cliche thing. People have kind of twisted it into some other thing that it's not. It's about realizing that those shadow sides actually served a purpose and they were cut away or shunned or suppressed for a really different reason. And sometimes we don't get the other person's perspective, and it's going to be really hard for us to not assume why other people did what they did to us and to just realize that what they did to us was not okay. Yes, we can go down the whole generational trauma route, but a lot of people don't even get that insight as to why these things happened, or we don't have connections with people or communication with people where we can sit there and say, why did you do this to me? Because a lot of those times, those people don't even know. And unless you're kind of like me, where you take a whole route of looking down everyone's fucking roads, you're not going to really know. You're going to have a lot of assumptions. You're going to have a lot of guesses. You're going to have a lot of pattern recognition more than anything. Where did this person falter on their boundaries? Where did they project? Now, what did their parents do? Now, what did their parents do? Now, what did their parents do? Unless you're going to go down that route, which may take years, if not your lifetime, to figure it out, you're going to have to come to this place of self-forgiveness eventually. And it just depends on how far down you want to go down that rabbit hole. For me, it was very healing. Because for me, I realized that it's not just my parents, it was their parents, and it was their parents, and it was their parents, and it was their sisters, and it was their aunties, and it was their uncles. It was everyone in one way, shape, or form that had to suppress their emotions, that had to suppress another part of themselves, or reject a part of themselves, or cut off a part of themselves, to be able to get to this place of me and my siblings finding our own way to do things that isn't going to pass it down onto our children. And I'm not saying that I'm the most perfect person. I'm just simply saying that there's a lot of awareness you need to have, and a lot of self-ownership you need to have, and a lot of unsuppressing years and years and years of trauma to realize that whether or not you get forgiveness from this person doesn't really matter anymore. Because you've forgiven yourself. You have felt all those deep, dark emotions now to go down that rabbit hole of, oh fuck, in that situation, I actually made a mistake, and owning that. Being able to realize where, oh fuck, I had an addiction, and this fucked this up for me, and owning that. And making that a part of your story, but not all of who you are and all of who you are as a person, or all of your personality, where we can find that a lot in people who come from NA and stuff like that. They take this, some people, not all, some people take this holier than thou look and be like, well, I healed from my addiction, therefore I know it all. But they don't. They don't. They know their story. They know their story only. And they don't know what it's like for other people. They don't know what it's like when you have no support, when you have no family, when you have no friends, when you have no one to care for you, when you have no parents, when you have no ability to support yourself, when you've gone through so much trauma that you don't know how to take care of yourself in loving ways, when you've been depleted beyond the means of taking care of yourself, then what do? A lot of people who have suffered through addictions do lose all of their support system, and then they're trying to find a way to come back up. So when you have people who had a support system, it can feel very much like this resentment towards other people where you're like, excuse me, you don't even know my story. And that's the thing, is that no one is going to know your story better than you, and no one is going to know how to love and nurture you better than yourself, because you know what you were lacking in as a child. You know what you were missing as a child. You know what you needed as a child, and that was completely rejected or demonized for. If you want to get closure from someone, like if you feel this, tugging at you that you need closure from this person in order to move on, this is a way of you trying to ignore and suppress and reject a part of yourself that you believe is true. So a lot of the time it's like, I need to talk to this person either to tell my side, which is a feeling of like injustice or a feeling of like resentment towards this person or rejection of yourself, or it's the other way where you feel like you've done something wrong. I have had this happen to me quite a lot. Like I've done this and had this happen to me, where you have had the realization that you have been the one that done something wrong in that relationship, and you need closure. You need the other person's forgiveness. You need the other person's reassurance that you're not a terrible person, or you need the other person's reassurance that, they understand you. But you're not going to be able to actually feel okay knowing that they forgive you, or that, you got that reassurance from them that you're not a terrible person, because what you're doing is, again, giving your power back to someone else, instead of looking at yourself and going, yes, I reacted horribly in this situation. Yes, there's a million reasons that can justify this situation, but I was the one in control. I was the one responsible, and I made that fuck up. I made that mistake. Now, how can I heal from this? First up is to fucking feel that. You're going to have to feel that anger. You're going to have to feel that resentment. You're going to have to feel that rage. You're going to have to feel that jealousy, and feel it to the point where you can't feel it anymore. What that means is that if you need to cry, you need to let go of that burden of like, okay, this person demonized me for a situation that was actually their fault. You need to feel that betrayal to the point where you don't feel betrayed anymore by their actions, but you actually feel the betrayal of yourself for taking that on as your responsibility in the first place. So that's a lot of mirroring that's going to be done. A lot of people do like mirror gazing in the spiritual side of things, so that's up to you how you want to go about that. But for me, I like to just lay on the floor. For a more normal point of view, you lay on the floor, you sit in a nice dark space, and you think about that time, and you actually let the emotions flow, even if that means you have to sit there and journal or things like that, and just allow yourself to feel it. Another route that you're going to have to go down. So in order to get this closure with this person, you may have to role play it in your head. This may be, for people who don't like meditation, it may be a little bit weird. Like, it may feel really weird to do this. But like I said in the other videos, a lot of love that we want to get from other people, we can actually find within ourselves. So to start that meditation practice off, you are just going to sit down. As little noise as possible, or being by yourself, is the best route to go down. You are going to get to a state of calmness, of feeling a little bit disconnected from your body, so that you're a bit more like, fully calm. This may take like 5-10 minutes before you feel calm. And in your head, you're going to visualize this person, like walking into a room, opening the door, and there's a person sitting at the table with you. So I would suggest doing this one person only, so don't have like your whole family member in your visualization. And you sit there and imagine them just listening to you. Because a lot of the time when we have a problem that comes from childhood, a lot of it is neglect, and a lot of it is neglection of our emotions, or neglecting our voice, or neglecting the situation. So imagine this person sitting there calmly listening to you, saying nothing at all, just looking at you, no facial expressions, no nothing, and you just letting everything out to them, letting everything how you feel about the situation that happened all the way through, until you get to a point where, you know, if they respond, like in your visualization, if they respond in the way that they're responding, how can you now, as an adult, respond to that situation, or say like, hey, this was not okay. This is absolutely bullshit. This was absolute neglect or abuse or whatever. And how would you rather that go to a point where you can forgive them for their fuck-ups? Because a lot of it is not taught as like a purposeful thing. A lot of it is trauma or neglection of themselves. So how are you going to be able to get to a point of saying in your power that, you know what, I forgive you for the way that you treated me, but it just wasn't okay, and I'm choosing now to walk away from you, or I'm choosing now to, like, I've told you everything I need to tell you now, and I still love you, I still care about you, but this is no longer the situation that I want in my life. And whether you hug them, give them a handshake, whether you do things like cord cutting, where it's like you imagine a pair of scissors on the table, you imagine that there's a red cord between you and them, and the second you cut it, you know, you leave them at that table, you walk through the door behind them, and you say goodbye to them. And that's one way of visualizing it. And now a lot of people who are very new to this, I would not suggest doing this as like your first run around. I would suggest maybe listening to the other videos and taking some other approaches to it, because this can be re-traumatizing for a lot of people to be put in those situations. But for a lot of people, it can be very, very healing. And I know I've done this multiple times over multiple situations, because sometimes you just will never get that closure that you're looking for. And this is a way to reimagine how you would like the situation to go, so that you're in a place of self-love and self-care and self-forgiveness. Like, you can tell them all the horrible things that you think you did, but you're still the focus of your own life. And the way you feel should be justified, and the way you feel should be, you know, put to the center of attention for you. So if you're going to walk up to this person and say, hey, I don't like the fact that you abused me in childhood, they can still sit there and make all the excuses they want. It's not about the fact that they have an excuse and you should forgive them. It's about the fact that they are a victim to that, and they don't have any other way to deal with it aside from to victimize you in a situation that's actually their doing. They feel like it's your fault for triggering their wounds and triggering their demons and triggering their shadows that they're not willing to deal with. But now that we're in this state of empowerment, we're able to decide whether we want to do that to ourselves, or we're going to forgive them for the fact that they feel like they have no control, and that you're going to now take that control and you're going to say, this wasn't okay. So this is not about forgiving them as if you need to bring them back into your life, because if they're at a point where they're not able to recognize their shadows, their traumas, their wounds, how they're projecting onto other people, that is not very self-loving or like taking care of yourself, to be able to put those boundaries back and allow them back into your life until they're actually if they're in a position where they are able to self-reflect and where they are able to actually take a look at it and say, you know what, I am so sincerely sorry for the way that I behaved, and it was absolutely inexcusable, and I would like to make amends for that. If people are not at a position of doing that, you 100% should not allow them back into your life until they are, because it means that the way they want you back into their life is not so that they have your forgiveness and because they want to make it right. It's because they want you to suppress your emotions, your story, your trauma, just like they did, to make themselves feel better, not to make you feel better. Now, I am sorry that this is a little jumbled. It's been one of those days where it's been very busy and I'm trying not to multitask, so I will edit this as best as I can so that it's still not too long. Lots of love to you guys. I'll talk to you soon.